How's it going, you guys? It's Scott with Everyday Home Repairs, and I have Emily Lopez from You Can DIY coming on the channel today to help us as beginners, as intermediate DIYers, install a toilet and make sure that toilet is stable and leak-free. Now, this is a complete guide with beginners in mind, but you can look at the bottom of the video. We'll have little chapters if you need to jump around and get the pieces that you need to make sure you get the job done right and get it done in a reasonable amount of time. And then don't forget, if you guys like what Emily's doing, she has a whole ton of other videos over on her own channel. So you can see a link in the description, or at the end of this video, we'll point you over to one of her videos so you can make your way over and check out what else she's doing. So let's jump into it.
I sometimes struggle working by myself because I'm a little bit smaller, so I have a hard time getting the toilet in, getting it aligned, not smashing my wax ring, and then having to go get another one because I messed it up and I can't reuse it. So I'm gonna go through the install process with you and share a couple of my tips that help me do it by myself, not being like a super strong individual. When you mount the bowl, that's the base of your toilet, to the ground, you have to create a seal right here so water doesn't come out of the sides. And you have a couple options to do that. The oldest school method is a wax ring. And you slide it over the hole and the wax helps make a seal so water cannot come out. I used wax rings for many years, but the problem was if I was trying to lift my toilet into place by myself, line up, see my bolts on each side and slide it down, if I sat it down on my wax ring and then realized, ooh, I'm a little bit off, or I accidentally set it down and smushed it. Once they're compressed, they smoosh down, and that's it. And so while they're very reliable for installing by yourself, sometimes that's a little bit tough if you're not gonna get it perfect on the first try or you're not super strong. You have a couple other options. I, for many years, have been using a non-wax ring. This is the one I use, but any non-wax ring is gonna be fine. This is just available at my big box store. And what I like about this is when I use my ring, and depending on the height of your flange, you're either gonna use it by itself or you're gonna use it with this extender and they couple together. This can be used and used and used. If I get my toilet down and realize I don't like my alignment, I can move it, I can adjust it, because I'm not smushing wax that's not gonna bounce back up. It's foam and it can just be reused. So this gives me a margin of error. I wanna show you guys one other option. This also helps you with flange repair. So this is not a wax ring, but it requires a wax ring. So what you do, this middle piece comes out. This is just to block your sewer gases until you're ready. You put a wax ring underneath right here. So your wax ring would go here, and this has a cover. Always take the plastic off. And then you bolt this down, and then these are your two bolts. See right there? That your toilet attaches to. But this is great if you have a damaged flange, which we've all ran into. You can put this over your flange, you can bolt this down, and it replaces your damaged flange. But the only thing with this is it gives you a little bit of lift. So if your flange is already too high, you can't use it. In my case, because I did replace my flange, I'm gonna use this non-wax ring. All right, guys, don't worry about this ugliness. We'll address that in a future video. I'm gonna pull out whatever I had blocking my gases and my drain. We don't wanna forget that that's in there, of course. Now, I'm gonna take my waxless ring minus my spacer because my height is above the floor. The instructions, if you're using this, give you a guide of height, when to use the spacer and when not. So in my application, I will not be using it. I'm using a combination of the bolts that came with this kit and that came with my toilet. So yours might be a little bit different, but you can still make it work. So these bolts, see the shape? See how they kind of have that oval? They slide in and then they go twisted sideways. You couldn't fit it in like that because it would hit, right? So you put it in that way, twist it sideways to slide it in, and then that holds it in place. But once we slide it in, of course it wants to tip over. So once I get it approximately where I want it, I like to take these little pieces and use those just to help me hold it about where I want it. And none of this is permanent. We can wiggle this around as we're aligning things and getting an idea. So I do the same thing over here, slide it into approximate place, and then I have this to hold it about where I want it. And that's gonna help you not having these move around a lot when you bump them. It's gonna help you out a lot. Then I'm gonna take my waxless flange. If you had a wax ring, you don't put it, it doesn't have holes like that. It just smushes on there, and you'd actually put it on the toilet first. So I'm gonna put this and align it and put the center inside my toilet, and that's also gonna help me figure out a little bit better where those bolts need to line up. And just get it about straight. When you go to put your bowl on, you'll see if you're off. There's what we look like from the top. If you've never installed a toilet before, here's what I mean by aligning your bolts. You have a hole down there and a hole there. And see our two bolts? They're gonna line up with those spots. The hard thing for me has always been getting those aligned while controlling the weight of this without smashing my wax ring. That's why having a non-wax ring makes it easier, because if you put it down and you have to reset it, that's allowable with this type of ring. We're just gonna go ahead and start the lift in / alignment process. I'm gonna make sure I have this approximately how I want it. You want your toilet to be straight, but once you get it on, if you realize it's not exactly how you want it, then you can lift it back off and correct it. For some reason, I used to assemble the full toilet and then lift it into place. If you're doing this by yourself, it's much easier to get the base in and then attach the top. And see, you do have a little bit of wiggle room in that slot because the bolt's much smaller than the actual hole. So now, if you have it where you want it, you can start smooshing everything down and attaching. Now to attach and get my toilet nice and secure, I have a couple options, because I have the bolts that came with my non-wax ring, and those are just gonna be a washer and then a nut. But because my toilet came with these, and the way these work is this tightens, that goes downward, and then this clips on top so I have a nice finished look. I'm gonna use what came with my toilet so I can get that finished look. Either works fine, this just clips together, so it's what I'm using in my application. I'm gonna go ahead and take this side down and tighten it on both sides of my toilet. As I tighten these, I like to go back to back from side to side, almost like if you've ever changed a tire before. You don't want to tighten one all the way and come to the other side. You want to gradually work around. So I do both sides, and then I do my fine tuning. You also have to be careful because this toilet is porcelain. Especially if you're using the metal washers and the metal nuts, you can do it with this too. Sometimes people worry so much about getting this tight that they actually crack their toilet and then they have to buy another one. So make it snug, but don't over tighten it. Now, for my toilet, because of the type those are, I can just click these on. If your bolt was too long, you can just cut this off with a hacksaw. Mine's actually the perfect height, so fortunately I don't have to trim it down. Now we're gonna take a look at the bottom of our tank. Comes like this just out of the package. You have these two bolts. They're not pushed through all the way from the inside. Here's the inside of our tank, and that right there, and that are the two bolts we're talking about. So I'm just gonna pull from the bottom to pull that down and do the same over here, or you can push from the inside. So here I'm pushing from the inside and I pushed it through. Now we have those down. Now the next thing we wanna do is look at this black section right here. This piece comes in our install kit. So we're gonna take this and line up those flat edges with the flat edges here. This is gonna be our seal that goes from the tank to the bowl. And you can kind of hear it going around those flat edges. You also can see when you have it right because this is flush and you're not fighting any of those angles. Now we're gonna take this and set it on there, and our two bolts that we pulled through are gonna go there, and that green gasket is gonna sit in here. Now it's just sitting in place. You're gonna have a big gap because that gasket's sitting in there and it's not compressed yet. So we're gonna screw these bolts in, and as we do this, we'll get smaller and it will compress this gasket. So as long as those are through the holes and your gasket hasn't fallen off, now we're gonna go ahead and move on. Now I'm gonna take the parts that came with my toilet. On each side of the bolt, we have this little plastic washer, and then you have this with almost like a metal washer on it, and it twists. This bolt fits into this tool they provide you with. See how it's shaped? To tighten from the bottom. I recommend you save this. When I've had to do repairs on these are really reliable, but when I've had to do repairs, I have needed this tool and it has been nice to have. So I just keep this in my toolkit. So we're gonna put the plastic washer on, and if you need to, you can reach on the inside and just hold the top of the bolt so it's not spinning on you. Then we're gonna take this, but remember, leave the bolt down because it's gonna fit in the tool. I'm gonna manually put it on. I'm gonna put it on by hand until it's snug, because then I'm gonna go do the other side and then come back to this side. This tool slides onto there. We're gonna tighten it. Righty-tighty. Now, as we're tightening, I want you to pay attention to this gap we looked at before. Remember when it was up really high because of that gasket? Clearly I've tightened this side more. I need to tighten this side. We want these two to come together, but once we hear it, we don't want that porcelain to grind together and crack. So that's kind of our measure. Pay attention to this as you're tightening each of those sides. You also can take a look just from the side here too and see how close they're getting. Front, side. Now we're gonna move on to the toilet seat. Keep in mind, this is an American Standard Champion short bowl toilet, and this is the seat that comes with it. If you're installing a different brand, this may go differently for you. So this is the seat that came with mine, and this has actually changed since the last time that I bought one. So this is the seat. These are the parts that came with it. So first you're gonna take these little guys, and it's got one side has a bit of kind of a seal on it. That's gonna go down to the toilet. So they're calling that like your no skid piece. So we're gonna take that, piece and slide it in. Then we're gonna align it. We're gonna put this bolt it gives us through the hole. On the underside, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna stick this up underneath. Then we're gonna put this in, click it in, and twist that into place. Bolts in, and we'll worry about aligning it before we tighten everything underneath. Right here, their toilet seat bolt. So we take that piece. The inward slope is gonna go up first. Then we're gonna take this guy, and that's gonna go inside that piece. And then we're gonna just turn it manually to tighten it. I'm gonna do the other side a little bit. I'll make sure I'm perfectly straight, and then I'll come back and tighten both sides all the way. I know y'all know I'm not leaving you with that ugly blue PEX pipe sticking out in this nice neutral bathroom. So make sure to keep an eye out for my next collaboration with Everyday Home Repairs, and I'll show you how to get rid of that ugly blue pipe and make it look like this. Now you're gonna reconnect your water with your water supply line. Now we're gonna turn the water back on. Always do a few test flushes just to check for any leaks. Let it flush, check around your perimeter, and check your fresh water lines also. Just a few times so you know you're good. If you guys want to learn why the plumbing community is so divided on whether or not you should caulk along the bottom of your toilet, and if you decide to find out how to do it, go check out this video right here.